For my personal book, I chose Murder in the High Himalayas by Jonathan Green. I chose this book because of the title. It caught my attention when I first looked at the Excel sheet. I thought this book I thought this book would be some type of mystery book where someone who would have to climb the Himalayas um, to find clues of the person like who would have died or something like that, somewhere between those type of lines. But I was completely wrong. The book is about the Tibetan people to escape Tibet to go to India. They wanted to meet the Dalai Lama and have a proper education of the Tibet history. Most of them wanted to escape the what is it called? The Chinese Communist Party, who were extremely cruel and punished the Tibet people, and they traveled. You see how close that Tibet and India is, and they travel along these lines of Nepal, and then yeah, these are the route Mount Everest, what they climbed up to escape. Here are the few people that were mentioned in the book. Kingsling, what I will be talking about her later, Deloma and Louis Bentelis. Here are the Chinese PAP, Deloma and one of the people from her neighborhood. And here are the safe house where the refugees of Tibet traveled into. And here is the Dalai Lama and the person who video recorded the shooting, which I will be talking about that later. But the book is about the Tibetan people who tried to escape India. They want to meet the Dalai Lama and have a proper education of Tibet history. Most of them want to get away from the Chinese Communist Party, who were extremely cruel and punished the Tibet people. The book the book looks to expose the party after a 17-year-old girl named Kingsling Death who was shot to death who was trying to escape India. Her death was recorded by the climbers who were climbing Mount Everest. And her death was an example of the oppression of by China. Her death was caught on film. These type of actions was happens all the time, but you just rarely ever sees it. And hmm, yeah, so this was the first time that it has ever been caught on camera. The cruel country that goes on, I still think that goes on today. More likely does. Mm. Overall, I think it was a good book. A little slow in the beginning, but towards the middle, it kind of picked up its pace, which I found at the beginning it was just really boring. It was hard to get into, but I was happy when I got to the middle where it was just more interesting. I found it interesting in the midst of the shooting and uprising that was going on. In the book, it talked about the Olympic was going on in China at that time of the uprising, which I found interesting because I never knew anything about it until I read the book. But also, what I found interesting was this is the time that the Tibet people spoke out. There was a voice up for the uprising because they're really what's the word for it? Oppressed. They're not really allowed to share their opinion. If I had to compare this book to another book we read, I would say it's, reminds me of endurance because some of the Tibet people had to either get their arms, toes, or legs amputated, which I immediately thought of Black Barrel when he got his toes amputated. Also, the difficult weather experience, where their lips were chapped and they were thirsty, just like the man in the book. I can barely compare it to Wild because, well, the only thing I can compare it is to the the walking. They walk several miles with their belongings on their back. In a way, I can relate to it, but the difference is that the miles that they walked to get to the mountains, and then the fact that they had to secretly go, because that would have been a misadventure for me if I was in that setting. Um, if I would have to plan an adventure, I wouldn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I know for sure that I wanted to be evolving around different weather changes or settings where I could see which is comfortable for me and then what is not. Therefore, I would try to slowly ease into the different type of uncomfortable weathers for me to do different activities or adventures, whatever that may be. But if that makes sense, but yeah, I hope you enjoy this video.